Okay, here we are in Photoshop with the images we just captured. Um, One thing to note is that when I first imported these into my computer from my phone, I noticed that they were a little blurry. So they're out of focus. There's nothing I can do in post to put that back in focus. So I need to make sure my images are in focus when I capture the picture. Um, This is also lower resolution because I was capturing from the video mode, so that's going to be a lower resolution. So I went down and took the photos again because I had not moved my lights. And once my lights are set up, the process of capturing 5 new images took me less than 5 minutes. What I did to solve my blur problem is I put the phone on something steady and I touched the screen right where I wanted it to focus, which was right here in the middle of this label for the hot sauce. And I was also in camera mode, photo mode, and not video mode, so it's a higher resolution. Let's take a look. Okay, so this image, this is the shot from the front with only the key light. And okay, we can see our reflector over here on the right, reflecting some light back into these shadows. Here's the same shot with ambient light only. Did I move anything? No. Okay, I know what I did. There. Okay, sorry. Here's the same shot with the key light and ambient light. I'll go back to just key light and now ambient light. Okay, see a reflection happening right here? That's the bare bulb overhead. Okay, let's see if, so this light right there, if I go back to no ambient light, that reflection is the overhead bulb in my basement. And this reflection is coming from my reflector on the right. Now, if I took the reflector on the right away, this reflection goes away. Overhead light, reflector. Move the reflector, that reflection goes away. So the question you have to ask yourself as a photographer is, how much of these are you willing to tolerate? So reflector, no overhead light, so we can see the reflection of the reflector. Overhead light and the reflector. Overhead light, no reflector. So since that's going to naturally happen on shiny things like this, especially plastic, but also metal, we just have to look and see where they're really annoying. So I think this middle exposure is, we have 2 reflections, so that just reads like there's a lot of lights. So we need to make a decision between this, which is kind of moody, and this, which is a little more open. I would go with this, which looks a little flatter now, but we'll be able to do more in post-production with this one. And while I was there, I decided to move the camera to the left and see how this is really flat. It just reads as a flat plane. There's a little bit of variety in where these end, so there's some depth. But if I move the camera over to the left, we can see the dimension of the objects. And our main light is right here on top of this box. It's over our shoulder. It's not right behind us, but it's over our shoulder a little bit. That's just like when I was outside. I say you put the sun behind you, put it over your shoulder, not necessarily right behind you, but not perfectly behind you, off to the side a little bit, but mostly behind you. And That's why this light looks pleasing, and compositionally, being able to see at least two planes of all of these objects gives it some volume. Now if I go from the other side, we get some volume from the objects, but our light is starting to, our key light, our main light, is starting to come to us from the front. So that starts to look a little strange. We get these what we call these rim lights, or these edge lights. See on the edge here? Because these are starting to become backlit. And that can be interesting to create drama, but in the context of food like this, we're not looking to create drama. That's at least not the purpose here. You can do it, but we'd have to set up for it better. So I think this is actually our best image. So I'm going to go into the post-production mode with this. So things are a little bit yellow. First thing I do always, grab the background, drag it down, and make a copy of that layer. Okay? I'm going to Command Z to undo that. Another way to do that is highlight the background layer, go up to the top, select Layer, and select Duplicate Layer. And I can rename it whatever I want, but I'll keep it as background copy. Command Z to undo. I can also select the background, right-click, and duplicate layer. So 3 ways to duplicate the layer. So I always make a background copy, so I'm working on the copy and not the original. To open up the camera raw controls, that's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. I need to turn the background copy into a smart object. I do that by right-clicking, convert to smart object, and if it looks like there's this little folded page there, that means it's a smart object. Now I can open up the camera raw filter by going to the top, selecting filter, camera raw filter. Let me expand that window so it's, there we go. I'm going to zoom in because I don't care about the stuff on the side so much. I can use the hand tool to move things around. Okay. Color temperature as shot. Let's try auto, see what that does. Not bad. So auto detected that there was gray back here and tried to make this into a neutral gray. Custom. Is there a picker in this? No, the tools are a little more limited than if this was a real raw image. But what it's doing is cooling it off because everything looks a little yellow. And then when it cools it off enough, it's saying, is there too much green or magenta? So I think there's a little too much green, so I'm going to add some magenta back. That looks pretty neutral. Minus 15 plus 11. Let's see what auto does. Minus 14 plus 12. Okay, so I was pretty close. Exposure is fine. Contrast is going to make my shadows deeper. Slide to the left makes the shadows less intense, but it makes things a little flatter and gray. So I'm not going to do it by contrast. I'm going to work with just the whites and the blacks, just the far ends. I'm going to start with whites because we have a lot of specular highlights, which are these bright white areas. Go to the white slider, hold Option, and slide it to the right. Just move it a little bit. Okay, see all those dots? Those are the specular highlights. I'm going to bring them down just a little bit. There's not much I can do about them. I'm going to look at the black, hold down the Option again, and slide the black slider a little bit to the left until I see some lines, and I'm going to keep going until one of them is real, genuine black, not yellow or red. Yellow or red means it's close. There we go. We got some there on the right. See by the bags of dried beans. So that's at minus 38. Let's see if I set it to 0. It might be a little dark. But what I can do is, that's the blacks. That's the far end of the spectrum. Shadows I can actually make lighter. So the blacks got darker, but I made the shadows a little lighter. Highlights I'm going to bring down a little bit. And vibrance, I like moving the vibrance up more than the saturation. If I oversaturate, things look pretty cartoonish. So, but this being food, we like to saturate a little bit. Not going to worry about that. I'm going to sharpen things just a little bit. Okay, we're good. I like that. Look, that looks pretty good, so I'll hit OK. This is where we're at now. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. This is where we were, okay? So just by turning this background copy into a smart filter and then applying the camera raw filter, I was able to do a lot. Let's turn it back on. I was able to clean up the picture a lot. Now from here, let's see, I'm going to crop this image. Should I crop at the end? No, I'm going to crop it now. Open the crop tool. I'm going to keep my aspect ratio at a 2:3, which is native for a 35mm camera. Keep a little extra, and I'm going to tell you why I'm keeping extra in a moment. I'm keeping extra up in here because I'm going to have to fill this in with gray.